Hannah Weisfeld, is director of Yachad, a campaign group which works to mobilise British Jews in support of a political resolution to the conflict in Israel and Palestine. Hannah, thank you very much for joining us. What do you make of what James has said in that piece there? Because all the evidence seems to be that food aid is not getting through. He says, well, nothing to do with the Israelis.
Well, I mean, I think we know that that's factually incorrect, because the American government, the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State wrote to the Israeli government, I think 2 weeks ago now, issuing them with an ultimatum, which was that if you do not increase the flow of aid in 30 days, there will be consequences. And we've seen, as you played that clip from Annalise Dodds, and she mentioned this, that there's been a statement in the last few days from 7 foreign ministries also making a similar claim about lack of aid and the need for UNRWA to distribute it. So it's certainly the case that the Israeli government controls the borders and controls the flow of aid. So I think to pretend that that is not an issue is actually just factually baseless, because there's plenty of evidence that suggests otherwise.
This law that's going through the Israeli parliament at the moment, what effect do you think that will have?
Well, I think it's going to be incredibly problematic, and there's just one specific thing that the previous guest said, which I think it is really important to refute, because it is absolutely the case that the World Food Programme and UNICEF operate in Gaza, but they have both gone on the record, I believe today, or if it wasn't today, yesterday, and said that they will not be able to continue their operations without UNRWA, and in all likelihood, the humanitarian operation will collapse in its entirety. And so, there is absolutely a case for the reform of UNRWA. And I think it would be a grave mistake for people to pretend that there are not issues, and there is evidence of a number of UNRWA staff that have since been dismissed participating on October the 7th. But the consequences of denying UNRWA's ability to manoeuvre in Gaza and the West Bank is that millions of Palestinians literally are going to pay the price of that. And as we know, that people are besieged, and some are starving, and UNRWA is the only agency, whether people think it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's the only agency that has the infrastructure to deliver aid. And so to close it down, to effectively close it down, which is what would happen if these bills, become laws in 90 days' time, would mean that the people of Gaza are stuck, unable to receive aid. And however bad the humanitarian situation is now, it's going to get much worse. And what I would say to people who are concerned about Israel's security, and that is a legitimate concern, it's very hard to see how denying millions of people that live within your control the right to basic access to basic needs like food, water, sanitation, schooling, how that will make you safer in the short or the long term. There is no evidence to suggest that what is happening today in Gaza is going to bring security for Israel. The people who are denied basic living standards, and we've been through this war is now over 12 months old, and there are millions of displaced people in Gaza. There is no security for Israel in circumstances like that, and there is absolutely no safety and security for the Palestinian people.
You see, I think what a lot of my listeners are going to be thinking is, well, James Marlowe sounded completely convincing in all the arguments that he was putting forward. You're putting counter-arguments. You sound completely convincing too. And what conclusions are they supposed to draw? Because, I find myself as somebody who's obviously followed this very closely, and I can't make up in my own mind, well, who really is at fault here, and what should happen now? How can international governments pressurise the Israeli government to actually open things up and allow more aid in, particularly, as you say, if UNRWA are the key to all of this anyway?
Look, I think the question about who do you believe and who's got the correct facts, I think to an extent the facts speak for themselves, which is that I don't think anyone can deny that there is a grave humanitarian crisis in in Gaza, and that Israel controls the borders, and so it has the ability to allow aid in and out. And I don't think it's as simple, and I think this is really important, it gets lost often in this conversation. It's not as simple as open the border, the trucks go through, and then it's the responsibility of agencies on the other side to distribute the aid, because those trucks need fuel, they need the ability to manoeuvre unimpeded, they need safe passage, and all of those things have been incredibly difficult to get, literally, for those aid agencies to get guarantees that their staff will be safe distributing aid. And we've seen, that there were 3 British aid workers killed distributing food in Gaza not that long ago. And so, and Israel does bear that responsibility, and it is the case that UNRWA bears responsibility for the staff it employs and for the, and for grave, terrible things that happened on October 7th, of which a minority of their staff, and it is a minority because UNRWA employs over 100,000 people, and there were 9 staff dismissed. And I'm not dismissing the gravity of what happened, but punishing millions of Palestinian civilians who are innocent because of that, which is what will be the outcome of this, is a highly problematic thing for the Israeli government to do. And, and I think that the international community, I think the UK government and David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, is right to say to Israel that we cannot support this. We will support reform of UNRWA and we will continue to monitor that, but we cannot stand by you while you shut down the only aid agency that has the capacity to literally feed the people of Gaza.
Hannah, thank you for joining us. That's Hannah Weisfeld, who's director of Yachad, a campaign group which works to mobilise British Jews in support of a political resolution to the conflict in Israel and Palestine.